Hey everyone, welcome to Reddit Readout. Today we are checking out ProRevenge. Story 1. Cheat on me and brag to your friends, enjoy deportation. I met this girl, 22 at the time, while I, 30 at the time, was working in a national park, and she was a housekeeper on a work visa. We instantly hit it off, and within a month we were in a relationship. We even had a solid long-distance arrangement, where we would visit each other on recreational visas in our respective off-seasons. I'd spend a few months in Romania or meet her at some vacation destination, then she'd spend a few months in the States. This went on for about 2 years, and eventually the conversation came up with her family about possibly moving her to the States permanently. Romania never really recovered from the Ceausescu regime, and political/economic corruption makes life pretty unpleasant for a lot of people. Her marrying and moving to the US meant that her mom wouldn't have to worry about her daughter having a good life. I arranged for sponsorship, and proposed to her. It seemed like my dreams were coming true. Then, about a month after she's all settled in, I get a message from her best friend back home. What followed were a year's worth of screenshots wherein she bragged about conning me into paying for her residency, while she cheated on me with 8 different men. In her friend's words, "You are a good man and you don't deserve this." So, over the following 2 weeks, I reported her to ICE and Homeland Security for a conversation her brother and I had over a bottle. At one point, he bragged about how he had done time in prison for smuggling weapons to Turkish terrorists, and how she had been his lookout on several occasions. As you might imagine, in the War on Terror days, this was not taken lightly. She was immediately arrested and deported, and put on a permanent no-entry terror watch list. Want to take advantage of me and cheat? Have fun never being able to come back to the States. Edit: to address potential misinformation on my part, I'm not very well versed in European socio-politics, so I was under the impression that her past along with her brother's would result in as much difficulty as it did here. I was misinformed, so thanks to everyone who set the record straight as far as her job prospects overseas. Smiley face. Story 2. Crappy bosses FAFO. I had a job working warehouse/delivery for a store. The entire corporate structure was built on treating the people below you like shit, and that was passed down through every level. Managers would just bark orders and bitch you out for any reason they could think of. They paid about 25 over minimum wage, and the bosses drove BMWs and Mercedes. The big boss lived in an $8 million house. Our store was the freight hub for 4 others in the little chain, so we got to know the drivers from the other stores well, as they were always coming to load freight or drop stuff off. One day, we're sitting with 2 drivers from another store, and Buddy remarks that he and his partner are working over 60 hours a week. I say he must be doing okay with all that overtime pay. He says they're not getting OT, just paid a straight time rate. I ask him if he signed an averaging agreement. He says no. He shows me his pay stub, and there it is. His partner comes back and confirms all this, and they've been doing it for months. He'd asked his manager about OT, and been told that straight pay was just the way it worked. I tell them that's illegal, and urge them to take it to labor relations. They're reluctant to rock the boat, figuring they'll be fired. So I drop it. We never got any overtime. Our warehouse was busy, our store was not. A couple months later, they're in again, and Buddy's partner tells us he and his girlfriend are moving back east, and he's giving his notice. I tell him again to file a complaint, nothing to lose now. So he does. A few weeks go by, and when I come in one day, there are expensive boss cars parked all along the loading dock. My workmate says something big is going down. All the managers have been summoned, and are inside with a bunch of people in suits. So we wander upstairs to see what's going on. The company bookkeeper had an office in our store, and handled all the payroll. He was a Chinese immigrant, nice guy. The bosses were trying to pin this on him, saying he didn't speak English very well, which was true, and had obviously screwed everything up. Turns out he was a pretty cagey guy. He knew what they'd told him to do was illegal, and was able to produce all the records of him telling them that, and of them telling him to basically just shut up and do it. He hands it all over and quits. I see Buddy, with a new partner, a few weeks later. He's got a pay stub for about 15 paychecks worth of earnings. Company got caught for all the overtime pay and a pretty substantial fine on top of that. Added bonus, the second-in-command had driven over a nail when he parked his silver BMW on the loading dock and had a flat when he came out of the store. He opened his trunk and called me over and said, "Change that for me." I told him sorry, that's not my job, and if I hurt myself, my compensation claim would be denied. As he went in to call a tow truck, I stood on the loading dock and gazed upon all the havoc I had wrought, and my heart was glad. Story 3. Lying and using people. I got you. This one needs background to fully understand why I went out of my way for this revenge. My best friend was married for 10 years. With his ex for a total of 13 years. He was absolutely head over heels in love with her like I had never seen before. Which I never understood due to her alcohol abuse. She would take it out on him, and when he'd be venting about it he'd always fall back on "it's not her, it's the illness," a very respectable and admirable stance on it. Last year she asked for a divorce because after years of what I would call abuse, he had simply run out of gas. Her reasoning for asking for one? When she got fired for testing positive for weed, he wasn't empathetic enough. He admits he wasn't because it had come on the back of one of her drunken tirades where she told him he was a piece of shit who was always trying to control her. When all he ever tried to get her away from was booze for the way she treated him when she was drunk. It took him forever to move on from this, with the divorce following shortly after. And earlier this year, after thinking he was moving on, he calls me to come over and he's in a bad way. I arrive and he is absolutely fall down level of drunk. Going on that she didn't ask for a divorce for those reasons, that she had really been cheating, with several other people. The next morning when he's more coherent, I ask him how he knew. He was cleaning out the spare room and selling/donating stuff he didn't need anymore, and when he went to clear an old tablet, she was still logged on and all of the evidence was there. He gets that out and says he's going back to bed and asks me to lock up when I leave. Before I left, I looked at the tablet. After seeing what I saw, I wanted to find a way to get even with the horrible and conniving woman, so I took pictures of it all and left. When I got home I started looking up information about these people. 2 of them were just normal guys, whether they knew she was married or not I don't know. But the third? Well, the third comes up as a registered sex offender. Still on probation for being such a disgusting pile of shit, an address listed as 123 Lane, City, State, Como. Knew that she was married. I immediately knew what I was gonna do. Como didn't live at 123 Lane. Como was living with the conniving ex. She made regular posts about their time together. On top of that, she is an avid weed user, and has several firearms because she enjoys sport shooting. So I go into the state's sex offender site, and make a report of Como not actually living where he's registered, and that Como is living in a home with what he has no right to, being a convicted felon and on parole. I include screenshots of the social media posts and all to back it up. I was thinking little would happen but an inconvenience to their lives. Boy was I wrong. She broke her typical posts with nothing serious trend on social media yesterday. With this gem, my year can't get any worse. Como lost his job and I am now facing eviction because I can't afford my rent. So I go on the state court system site to see if it's related. And yes, it was. Como was rearrested. She clearly can't post bail or Como would be out. The job she took after being fired definitely can't support her lifestyle. So he's probably going back to prison or at least jail, and she's a breath away from being homeless. I don't know if I'd ever tell my best friend I was the one behind this. But he is definitely ecstatic to see a horrible woman and sewer rat get what they deserve. Part of me wants to put up the sex offender registration link and that it's sitting in jail and say something to the effect of "it's a little more than losing a job," but not wanting to make my best friend's life harder, I'll just let sleeping dog lie. Story 4. How I got a car dealership to give my friend a newer car. Circa 2020 January, my friend makes a stupid decision and buys a brand new car he can't afford. His insurance is like $400 a month, he makes like $10.25 an hour working as a shift supervisor at McDonald's. His car payment is like $795 a month. Now at $10.25 an hour, 30 hours a week, that's a weekly income of about $300 a week or about $1,230 a month, so yet. So my friend came to me for help because I used to sell cars and know the industry pretty well. I go over his paperwork. The dealer did rip him off, but my friend is trying to find a way to get out of this mess. And ripping someone off isn't illegal. They did of course overcharge him for warranty, they gave him a higher APR, they had add-ons, etc. But none of that is illegal, and I know the only way I can get my friend out of this deal is if they did something illegal. So I look at his finance application that my friend signed, it correctly listed his income. Which turned a light bulb on in my head. No bank is going to approve someone for a $795 car payment if they are only making $1,200 a month. It does not make mathematical sense to do that. So I start searching through his paperwork for the finance app the dealer submitted to the bank. Oftentimes when you submit a finance application at a dealership, the dealership will take the hand-filled out application and reproduce it electronically. This is pretty normal. However, on the application the dealer submitted to the bank, the dealer said my friend was a GM of the McDonald's and made $70,000. My friend had good credit, so it doesn't appear like the bank asked for proof of income. So I go to the dealership with my friend and tell the sales manager he's going want to put me in touch with the GM because we are going be unwinding my friend's deal and giving his trade-in back. The sales manager thought I was joking, the GM also thought I was joking. Then I demonstrated how his dealership finance department committed bank fraud. I showed the GM the finance app my friend filled out. I then showed the GM the finance app his dealership submitted to the bank and pointed at the income difference. My friend really made $14,000 a year, the dealership claimed my friend made $70,000 a year. That's bank fraud, that's a felony, let's keep this simple, shall we? The GM sees his dealership is in a load of shit. The proof I am presenting to him is rock solid. He knows it, I know it, we are all on the same page. He goes, okay, so what can I do to make this right? I go, unwind the deal, give me my friend his trade-in back. Unwinding the deal is basically the GM agreeing to cancel the deal, and basically erasing the deal and pretending it never happened. GM tries to avoid that, but I remain firm and remind him we can easily take this documentation and turn his life in a living hell. He knows I'm right. My friend also needs a car to get to work the next day. The GM says he'll check into it. He comes back and tells me unfortunately they sold his trade-in already. I said that's fine, unwind the deal and let's put my friend into something as good or slightly better than what he traded in for. So the GM goes, so he'll buy a car similar to his trade-in. I said no, you'll give him a car similar to his trade-in. The GM goes, it doesn't work that way. I go, it does when you commit bank fraud. GM is upset with me and I remind him, I'm being really nice and this situation can totally get really ugly. Like felony level charges ugly. Like losing your franchise ugly. So yeah, this is going hurt, but it's going hurt less my way. So the GM goes alright and he looks in his inventory and he tells me they have a 2007 Focus with 10k more miles. I tell him no, the car you give my friend needs to be the same or better than what he trade in. The GM counters, I'm giving him a free car, and I go, no, you took his trade in, you sold it, you made money on that sale, you also committed a felony in the process of selling him his new car, you are now correcting that mistake. This isn't a free car for my friend, this is you are correcting your mistake. GM insists that's what he's willing to do. I tell him if he can't do better than that we will go to a consumer protection attorney and have a conversation with them. My friend didn't want to go this route, but it was our plan B. We get up, the GM says wait, give me a second. The GM goes, I have a 08 Civic, it has 5k more miles, but it's a Civic and not a Focus. I unwind the deal on the new car, and put your friend in the Civic at no extra cost. We agree. GM has the paper drawn up, the old loan on the new car is cancelled, they take in the new car again, but because it's already titled they'll have to sell it as used, that sucks for them, and they gave my friend a better car than the one he traded in. 4 people asking why we didn't get a lawyer involved from the start. We could have done that. But courts take a long time, and this was a faster way to fix the situation. That's all for today. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.